like to thank God for being here.
Amen.
It's a blessing to be here.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
the like in the story that I would like to share with you is the prodigal son. I am like the prodigal son because I was raised in the church, New Strangers Home, by my grandparents. And as long as I was in the church, and as long as I was doing those things that my grandmother would have me to do, life was all right. But when I turned about 13 and 14 years old, I decided that the excitement in the streets was greater than the excitement in the church.
All right.
So I left the church and decided to go out into the streets and seek that what was out in the streets. Well, I'm just not making it back. It's been a long, deadly, and dangerous journey. It's a great blessing to be alive today and to be here to speak this message to you. So I want to first thank God for allowing me to be here and to return back home. I would like to thank Pastor Taylor for giving me this opportunity to spread the message that I have to share. And I would like to thank you, the congregation, for receiving me. And I would like to also ask you that you would help me carry this message on for my messages to the next generation. Messages to the next generation. Because I was raised by my grandparents, and I can remember that as long as my grandparents raised me in a certain self-image, then life was all right for me. But when I destroyed that self-image, I went into the streets and I started to think like, hey, the things that my grandmother raised me with, they won't work out here in the streets. The kindness and the generosity, and I started to change who I were on the inside. I didn't understand that I was actually destroying my life and actually creating what they call a demon inside. But as life went on, this demon inside of me took over. And those things that my grandmother instilled in me, those things lie dormant. And the next thing you know, I'm a totally different person than the person who my grandmother raised me to be. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. My theme is crime prevention by youth empowerment. Because I would not be doing justice if I did not come back and do for the next generation what God has done for me. So I return now to bring back a message to the next generation, to warn them of the danger that they face, to warn them that when they leave their mother's side, when they leave the churches, when they leave these places of safety, and they go out there into the world thinking they're chasing something, that when they get it, it's not what they think it is. That when they get these things, they're nothing but death, disease, and destruction. And that these things are taking us down a pathway of destruction. And I can remember from the times when in my teenage years, and looking up to it now, it has only gotten worse. And I can look at it and see from 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, man, we won't even be able to walk the streets.
All right.
So it's important now that we take upon us this crime prevention by youth empowerment. I was looking at a news article this morning, the one who was talking about fighting crime, and we must take the streets back, which that's a good concept. But I want to enjoin upon us that it's about crime prevention. Because if we call ourselves taking the streets back, and if we take a certain attitude out here to these youngsters, they won't perceive it right. They won't perceive that we care about them. They won't perceive that we really love them, and they won't respond well. But when we go out there and we say, hey, we're only advising you, this is for your good, and we bring you something of good tidings, then when they see that we really want to advise them for their own good, they're more inclined to take that message. So let me move on right there. The theme of this talking today is crime prevention by youth empowerment. And there are several different goals that I wish to enjoin upon. One is speaking in schools free of charge to warn all students against the danger that they face. So any of you out there that have any relatives or any people that you know of any schools, please invite me. You can call me or my email address, and I'll come out to any schools and speak to the youngsters free of charge. Second of all is I'm in the process of forming what I call an OG coalition. And OG is just a simple term of ranking that they use in the streets. After you've been through so much violence, so much gunplay, they call you an OG. Okay. Now, what I have come to find is that you have many of these individuals getting back from prison, they disenfranchised, can't get a job. Well, as I run across them, I tell them what I'm doing now, man. I'm doing motivational speaking, and I'm warning the next generation about the danger they face. So they offering to aid and assist me and help me. So it's not just me, but it's other individuals like me who've been in prison, who done did time, that's willing to come into these churches, into these school systems, and talk to these youngsters to warn them that the pathway that you following down and behind us is a pathway of destruction. Because we thought that we was chasing something right and good when we started 16, 17 years old too. But it turned out to be only destruction. So there are other individuals who are willing to come with me to proclaim this message, but we need your help. So any platforms that you know about, please feel free to invite me out. The next one is I would like to produce more inspirational CDs and DVDs. In other words, I have made an inspirational CD. It's a double disc, and it covers all of the subject matter I talk about, the 7 gates of destruction and death by 9. These are detailed information that parents can use that will provoke thought in your minds about how they can deal with you to prevent them from going straight in the first place.
Yeah.
And all it did was the things that my grandmother instilled into me. I watched how I got rid of these things and picked up other bad habits and how that destroyed my life. So it's my duty now to warn parents about the things that they can look and see in their parents and understand, hey, that child is changing their self-image. And in the process, it will destroy their life. And that's very, very important. I want y'all to, I want y'all to support me on this. And anybody that you know that would like the words or hear the words that I speak that are truthful, then please invite me out. The next thing that I would like to talk about is we have goals and plans on athletic pursuits. In other words, a lot of these youngsters are walking the streets and they don't really have anything to do. They have all of these hormones and all of this energy. They got to prove themselves. I'm a soldier. Well, the thing that we got to do as a community is find wholesome activities and wholesome things for these youngsters to do. Well, you ain't got to go over there on the block and shoot the block of though, but you can come over here and you have another way of proving yourself. You can come over here and get off into this athletic pursuit and prove yourself. And we must find ways of allowing these youngsters to prove themselves, having these arenas that they can act out these things of excitement that they need. Because all they do is when they walk the streets, they try to find these things in the neighborhood and it leads to trouble.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me open this back up.
Amen.
And the next subject matter would be, I want to start a book reading club to elevate intelligence. Because back when I started out, I wasn't, we inclined as young black males not to read. We're taught not to just necessarily study. We're not taught the value that is in these books. But when I got to prison and I started to read and I started studying and I reading this book and self-help books and stuff, and I started to see the difference it had in my life, I could see now knowledge is power.
All right.
So now I'm in the process now. We want to start a book reading club where I can gather these youngsters and we can take certain books by black psychologist Dr. Naeem Akbar and different black psychologists and take these concepts and empower ourselves. Not just me, but them also, so they can empower themselves while they're that age and elevate their intelligence. And I believe within the elevation of their intelligence, it will avoid them from getting into these troubles and going off to these things and even being deceived and tricked into things that they're falling victims to.
All right.
We have to teach them to think and be able to occupy and use their minds. Another thing I want to do is start educational trips. Like I want to start trips where I can take them to Martin Luther King Museum or Malcolm X Museum. I want to take them to different environments where they can be exposed to bankers, professionals, people of professional dispositions, people that can see that, hey, I got another option in life. I ain't just got to be the dope woman corner, or I ain't just got to be the shoot up bang bang guy, but I can actually be this professor. We went and met a professor over at this college the other day. He had a nice little talk with us, and I want to be able to take them to other environments outside of their neighborhoods so that they can see other cultures and people doing other things so they can say, hey, I can identify with that too. I ain't just got to necessarily identify with what's going on over in this neighborhood, but I can identify with that professor at the college or this banker or whoever that will bring about a positive example and change in my life. And the thing I want to start, which Mr. Pastor Terrell talked to me and gave me access to the church here, I would like to start seminars and workshops. And what this is going to be is where we're going to invite these youngsters and the parents out together and have interaction talks where they can ask me questions, I can interrelate or whatever, and we can really get down to earth about what it is that may be ailing their child or their son. And we can record these things so we can give them to other parents that they also can get these ideas of how I can deal with this unruly or this wayward boy or whatever case may be. What is actually going wrong with it? Because I can remember my grandmother raised me a certain way. But when I went out into the streets, within 2 or 3 years, I was already in too deep. I had already changed my self-image and was already displaying all types of behavior that she didn't understand.
Yeah.
And my grandma, what's going on with these boys? A lot of times you can go out into the streets, and the streets are so powerful. And the influence is so powerful out there that they change the youngster in such a way that when he make it back up in the house, you don't even know who he is. What happened? I was just teaching this stuff a couple of years ago. Why is you? I didn't even know he was capable of that. You know? But he is. Because the streets are so changing.
Right.
I remember consciously making a change when I went out in the streets. Man, kindness. And my grandma thought I ain't no work out.
All right. All right.
Being kind. Or certain things that my grandmother raised me with, I had to do away with these things and harden myself. And what I did was I created a demon inside of myself. And what happened was, you know, what happens is the youngster, he starts to change himself. And it's a little bit at a time at first, and it happens gradually. And then the next thing you know, you look up 10 years ago, I'm a totally different character. They call me K9 Psycho on Wood Street. When I looked up, right before I got looked up, from the child my grandmother raised me to be, all the way to this individual who you call K9 Psycho, who sell dope and a shooting pistol. What happened in between that period? It's important that we identify this so that we can prevent it from happening to future generations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because I was raised by my grandparents in the best way. And if I went astray, then what about the youngster out here that's in the first place? What chance does he have? And it's important that I want y'all to help me in this by spreading the word, getting my number, passing out my flyers in churches, schools, PATA meetings, whatever. I would be glad to come out and share this message. Amen. I want to warn. The subject matter that I talk to youth about is the 7 gates of destruction. I want to share those with you right quick. One is influences. Make up who I become. And when I talk about influences, I talk about the influences in the neighborhoods and in the communities and how they go about changing the mentality in the heart of these youngsters. And how it so completely transforms them that we as a community don't even recognize our babies anymore. Knowing these crimes and knowing these things. And it's important that we understand the processes that took place that changed us as a community. The next one I want to talk about choices. A powerful responsibility I didn't understand. And when I talk to youngsters about it, I talk to them about just how important choices are. Because I took them lightly. I'm talking about the choices from choosing what friends I run with, what school I went with, to what I was going to do with my life. I took those choices lightly. I was young. You seem like you got your whole life ahead of you. These choices don't really mean as much now. But they do. Those choices in my 16, 17 years old, I was very likely to succeed, raised by my grandparents. So the next thing you know, I looked up, I'm doing 12 mandatory years in prison. And I might as well pay to stay, because I sat there and did day for day. When I got locked up, I had 5 skills cases, 3 armed robberies, and a carjacking. This is the child that my grandmother raised.
All right now.
You would have never thought that I was capable of doing any of those things back then. But it's important that we understand this. Then when I move on, I move to drugs. How drugs cloud the mentality. How the dope game is a trap. How these youngsters run out here into the dope game thinking that it's going to supply them with all of the things that they need. They even got a rap song. Drug money will buy you what you want. But they don't reveal the trap that's in that. That you pick up all these bills that you got to pay for, and I done seen individuals who get ready to come out the dope game. They can't quit.
That's right.
Man, I can't. I got a case I got to pay for. I got 2 dope cases I got to pay for. I got this mistress I got to take care of her kids. I got this car I got to maintain. I got another mistress over here. In other words, when he went out and he got this dope boy money, he also got the dope boy lifestyle to go with it. So now he got all of these bills and all these things and all this image to uphold. I can't quit selling dope if I wanted to now. I'm trapped into the dope game. Not to mention the jackals and the police. It's so much that I want to talk to them about that dope game. Like Boosie said in his rap, it's too late to get
All right.
The next thing gangs. I remember when I joined the gang about 14 years old, and I remember how I served loyalty and went through all kind of changes trying to prove myself as being a loyal member. And I remember when I got to prison and stayed in prison 12 mandatory years and ain't seen no gang wars, no aid assistance, no help, except for my family members.
All right.
You know, and it's important to understand that these youngsters, when they get ready to join these things, understand exactly what they're joining.
Yes, sir.
What will it bring you? Will it bring you positivity in your life or negativity in your life? Gangs ain't never did nothing cause me trouble. When I was young, I didn't have any problems. You come in, hey man, did this to me over here, come on, let's go over here and take care of this. That's your problem that you bring into my life by me being affiliated with you, by me joining your gang. And it's important they understand this, that gangs have no real love, no real loyalty in the long run. And that's one of the things I want to explain to you. Prison. I want to talk to them about prison. Really, this is about how they have this myth that prison is supposed to be a good place. Well, I've been there for 12 mandatory years. It ain't nothing but steel and concrete. You got women and punks handling you. You can wear only so many clothes at a certain time. It's hot in the winter, cold. I mean, it's cold in the winter, hot in the summer. You got mosquitoes eating you. I mean, it's just straight misery. How anyone could think that that was something good to go through.
All right.
Let you know.
Yes, sir.
You out of touch with reality.
Yes,
and the confusion is multiplying. These youngsters out here in the streets now thinking it's a good thing, it's a status to go to prison. But I'm here to bring to them that, hey, that is the end of the line. When you get to prison, you done lost in it.
Yes, sir.
Ain't nobody doing nothing real fruitful or positive. Man, them cats sitting around there calling home, crying to mama. It's about $50 or $100, so it's about the canteen. You know, so it's important these youngsters understand that that's the end of the road. You know what I'm saying? You got to be trying to avoid prison at all costs.
Yes,
Teach,
I want to move on. Sex. I want to talk to them about sex. About how sex, about illegitimate children. All you're doing is keeping the process going along. Because those same illegitimate children end up in the projects, half raised with a gun in their hand, a few more years selling dope. They add to the problem. So when we having these things, I want to teach them about how sex is just as deadly as a bullet. With all the diseases and things that are going on out here in the world. So and the last thing I want to talk about is death. Because we see it so often. And these youngsters, they don't, I remember when I was 16, 17 years old. That's not a concept that we really took serious. You know, of course we can die. But when you're 16 and 17 years old and you're running the streets and you're doing this, the perception of death really does not cross these youngsters' mind. They really don't understand. That's why they're leaving it so fast. Because they don't take it serious. They can see the news and they can understand, okay, my partner just died last week. But it don't touch home to me. I can remember how it never reached home to me. It can never, and I'm not going to die. And I go right on out there the next night, 3 o'clock in the morning, running the streets, doing this and doing that. But I'm not going to die until it happens. And it's important these youngsters understand the process. I have a question I'd like to ask them. When you see a youngster die at the age of 17, 18, 19 years old, and when you see a man 49 years old and you ask them, if you have died at that age of 19 years old, how much would you have missed? You know, missed a lot. I mean, it's a lot of sunshine, a lot of sunrises, a lot of sunsets and stuff that youngster would have missed by dying at that early age. And I try to put these things on because I always, Malcolm X said, all we can do is provoke thought. And try to make them think and use their own minds to try to think their way out of this problem. First, before I go in, I'd like to share a poem. I'm also a bit of a poet. And the reason I write my poetry is because it's a challenge out to the rap community in order to write positive rap. Because they write so much negative rap and it's contributing to the problem in so many ways that we have to do a trend. And I would like to ask you as people to support all positive things that these brothers come with. Because the reason I want to send a challenge out to them that, hey, y'all trying to sell 1 million copies. If you would write positive things, positive raps, and you bring them to your people in the churches, they might support you. And you can sell 1 million copies selling something positive. And when you tell them, hey, Boots and G's and whoever you is, you're not going to be able to sell 1 million copies with that negative rap. But if you get some positive rap that's going to raise our children right, we're going to help you. And we're not going to buy that stuff if you go poison our kids with it. But switch it up, write it different, make it sound good at the end of it, and then we'll buy it. We'll support you and you'll sell them.